Biden praises Antifa, and Antifa condemns him. Also, more media lies about Trump's Charlottesville statements. Joe Biden announces his presidential run with what was little more than just an anti-Trump and pro-Antifa message. You would think that there would be more to it than that, but there really isn't much more to it than that. Let's hear part of that now.
It was there on August of 2017 we saw Klansmen and white supremacists and neo-Nazis come out in the open. Their crazed faces, illuminated by torches, veins bulging and bearing the fangs of racism, chanting the same anti-Semitic bile heard across Europe in the 30s. And they were met by a courageous group of Americans, and a violent clash ensued. And a brave young woman lost her life. And that's when we heard the words of the President of the United States that stunned the world and shocked the conscience of this nation. He said there were, quote, some very fine people on both sides. Very fine people on both sides?
After I saw that, I knew that I would see various Antifa factions come out on social media against Joe Biden. After all, he is pro-American, or at least he's trying to be pro-American, and these so-called anti-fascists that he praises as American heroes are specifically and very vocally anti-American. Sure enough, I checked some Antifa Twitter accounts, and I was right. By the way, notice that Joe Biden repeats the intentionally, knowingly, consciously dishonest claim that Trump was referring to the racists and those who opposed them when he said that they were very fine people on both sides, rather than what he was actually talking about. Those who wanted to destroy history and those who wanted to protect those historic statues. What did Trump actually say about that Charlottesville stuff?
But I thought I should put out a comment as to what's going on in Charlottesville. But we're closely following the terrible events unfolding in Charlottesville, Virginia. We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. On many sides. We have to come together as Americans with love for our nation and true affection, really, and I say this so strongly, true affection for each other. So when I watch Charlottesville, to me, it's very, very sad. Above all else, we must remember this truth. No matter our color, creed, religion, or political party, we are all Americans first. We want to get the situation straightened out in Charlottesville, and we want to study it. And we want to see what we're doing wrong as a country where things like this can happen. My administration is restoring the sacred bonds of loyalty between this nation and its citizens. But our citizens must also restore the bonds of trust and loyalty between one another. We must love each other, respect each other, and cherish our history and our future together. So important. We have to respect each other. Ideally, we have to love each other. And now to the Veterans Administration, where I'm...
You're putting what you're calling the alt-left and white supremacists on the same moral plane.
I'm not putting anybody on a moral plane. What I'm saying is this. You had a group on one side and you had a group on the other, and they came at each other with clubs, and it was vicious, and it was horrible, and it was a horrible thing to watch. But there is another side. There was a group on this side, you can call them the left, or you've just called them the left, that came violently attacking the other group. So you can say what you want, but that's the way it is.
It's on both sides, sir. You said there was hatred, there was violence on both sides.
Well, I do think there's blame. Yes, I think there's blame on both sides. You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either. And if you reported it accurately, you would say.
Neo-Nazis started this. They showed up in Charlottesville. They showed up in Charlottesville to protest.
Excuse me. They didn't put themselves down as neo, and you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group. Excuse me. I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name. No, George Washington was a slave owner. Was George Washington a slave owner? So will George Washington now lose his status? Are we going to take down, excuse me, are we going to take down statues to George Washington? How about Thomas Jefferson? What do you think of Thomas Jefferson? You like him? Okay, good. Are we going to take down the statue? Because he was a major slave owner. Now, we're going to take down his statue. So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history. You're changing culture. And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly. Now, in the other group also, you had some fine people, but you also had troublemakers, and you see them come with the black outfits and with the helmets and with the baseball bats. You had a lot of bad people in the other group too.
Treated unfairly, sir. I'm sorry, I just didn't understand what you were saying. You were saying the press has treated white nationalists unfairly? No, I just didn't understand what you were saying.
No. There were people in that rally, and I looked the night before. If you look, there were people protesting very quietly the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. I'm sure in that group there were some bad ones. The following day, it looked like they had some rough, bad people, neo-Nazis, white nationalists, whatever you want to call them. But you had a lot of people in that group that were there to innocently protest and very legally protest because, you know, I don't know if you know, they had a permit. The other group didn't have a permit. So I only tell you this. There are two sides to a story. I thought what took place was a horrible moment for our country, a horrible moment. But there are two sides to the country. Does anybody have a final? Does anybody have? You have an infrastructure.
What makes you think you can get an infrastructure?
Okay, now notice that Trump recognized the complex reality that there are various factions that were divided on the issue of the Confederate statues. There were some bad people who wanted the historic statues to be taken down, some good people who wanted them taken down, some bad people who wanted to protect them, and some good people who wanted to protect them. Those who dishonestly reduced this to the lie that Trump was praising the racists who wanted to protect the statues are pushing the extremely low-resolution view in which all colors and all shades are just shoehorned into either black or white. A binary view, which is hypocritical because these dishonest regressive leftists otherwise condemn binary views on things, like the binary view of sex. Even though we are dimorphic sexual creatures, they say, no, that's not true, and if you're binary like that, that's wrong. But here they are taking a binary view on things, even though Trump took pains to show you that he is not speaking in binary terms when he said that. Many people firmly believe that Trump praised the racists in Charlottesville because many mainstream propaganda outlets like CNN, for example, or the Young Turks deliberately edit out most of what Trump said. In fact, some of you right now are dealing with a surprise or a shock that you got from me showing you what I just showed you because you were convinced that he was praising the racists. And here's a very recent example.
Yeah. President, do you still think there were very fine people on both sides in Charlotte?
Well, I've answered that question, and if you look at what I said, you will see that that question was answered perfectly. And I was talking about people that went because they felt very strongly about the monument to Robert E. Lee, a great general. Whether you like it or not, he was one of the great generals. I've spoken to many generals here, right at the White House, and many people thought of the generals, they think that he was maybe their favorite general. People were there protesting the taking down of the monument of Robert E. Lee. Everybody knows that.
In response to that last clip, Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks tweeted this: "Today, Donald Trump doubled down on saying there were, quote, very fine people, unquote, on Nazi and racist side in Charlottesville. He praised Robert E. Lee, who was vicious slaveholder and the lead traitor to America. Maybe they have kinship because Lee was famous for separating slave families." Now, we just heard what Trump said, okay? And we just read what Cenk tweeted. We could see Cenk is flat out lying. It's so extremely blatant of a lie. It's not even twisting the truth. It's just flat out lying. But those of us who are familiar with the Young Turks and familiar with the truth expect such lies from the Young Turks. But it's just so obvious. It boggles the mind just how obvious they are about it and how millions of people just go, okay, yeah, sure. No doubt as I record these words, there will be more doubling down on these kind of lies from people on the regressive left. Here's an example that came out just a few minutes ago as I'm sitting here recording this. I watched this pop up on Twitter. Here's from George Takai. I want to show you a lot more of Trump condemning the racists in Charlottesville, but, you know, it's already overpowering this whole video, and this is more about the Joe Biden versus Antifa thing. You can, however, see more of this on the webpage version of this video. See the link below. I hope to do a video about this all on its own and compare exactly what the mainstream media propaganda outlets say about Trump's statements, and then show you Trump's actual statements. And now for some examples of Twitter accounts more or less basically saying to Joe Biden, no, Joe, you're not on our side. We hate you. You're the establishment. You're for America. We're anti-American. We hate you. Here we have a tweet from It's Going Down, which is certainly Antifa's most widespread propaganda outlet. It's basically their Joseph Goebbels. They tweeted, "Anarchists and autonomous anti-capitalists helped shut down the World Trade Organization in Seattle in 1999 against corporate globalization and neoliberalism." And that's a jab at Biden because he's a neoliberal. Just as they did fascists in Charlottesville in 2017. The DNC was an enemy of social movements, the earth, and the working class then and now. Hashtag fuck Joe Biden. They also tweeted, for context, Biden released his Out the Gate campaign video today, focusing mostly on the demonstrations in Charlottesville, and then they give a link to the video that we saw earlier. Here's another from It's Going Down about this. Also, whether Trump's embrace of far-right violence, Biden's past support for segregation, or Bolt's commitment to a system of domination held together by prisons, policing, and borders are all just different flavors of the same system. So they're basically saying, yeah, he's pretty much Trump. And then have a link to this article, When Joe Biden Chose the Wrong Side of History, by Splinter News. Let's have a quick look at that. Don't really have time to read it, but this is from earlier this month. And, you know, if you want, you can scroll down and see the webpage version of this video, and you can read this yourself. Let's move on. Let's have a look at this one by a Dylan Petrohilos, who is saying that they're one of the J20 defendants, you know, the people who, for the Trump inauguration in August of 2017. You know, in the famous videos where they're running wild in the streets of Washington, D.C., at least this person's claiming they're one of those. They tweet, anti-fascist direct action is greater than Joe Biden's presidential run. We'll need anti-fascism always and forever. We don't need opportunist politician. They mean politicians. And it's interesting to note this response to it. Yet y'all act more fascist than anyone else through silencing and threatening your opposition. If the right was fascist, you'd be dead. But you're alive and talking, so let that sink in. Somebody using this cool clown Pepe, you know, the clown world thing right here. They say, hashtag fuck Antifa, fuck the fascist, totalitarian, far-left bigots. If Twitter bans white supremacists, they should ban these violent, privileged idiots that call for destroying other people's properties and hurting innocent people. Hashtag Antifa, at Far Left Watch. And then this person, laughing my ass off, you Muppets are the actual fascists. Muppets. If you remember Anti-Fash Gordon from previous videos, you know that this is another Antifa account. They tweet, post hog or get the fuck out of Antifa, Joe Biden. We have this from Crime Think, another Antifa Twitter account. It wasn't Democrats like Joe Biden who stood up to fascists in Charlottesville. It was anarchists, local people of color, revolutionaries. Politicians try to co-opt grassroots resistance but can never replace it. Ford Fisher, who's an independent journalist who you should check out, he's the guy behind News to Share, he tweeted, Joe Biden's presidential announcement video uses a lot of footage from Charlottesville and focuses on that as a theme. As someone who was there and found it to be quite traumatic, I'm not sure how to feel about that. Question for other journalists who were there. Thoughts? And now I mention this not because Ford Fisher is Antifa or anything like that. In fact, Antifa hate him. I mention it because Antifa 7 Hills retweeted this and they add, we think it was fucking despicable, calling those of us willing to fight street battles with these violent Nazis courageous, when he knows full well the brunt of that work is done by anti-fascists daily that Dems vilify, target, investigate, and prosecute. He can fuck off. You know, there are Democrats who specifically praise Antifa. Keith Ellison, for example. Val Demings, for example.
Congresswoman has dubbed Wednesday's protests at the University of California, Berkeley, which you may remember turned violent, as a beautiful sight. Now, they broke out shortly before a senior editor of the news website Breitbart was due to give a speech against so-called sanctuary campuses. They offer protection to undocumented students.
We have seen demonstrations, and I think we've already talked about that around the country. Young people at Berkeley protesting against this unconstitutional order. And so as we encourage our young people to get involved, I thought it was a beautiful sight.
And then you have Democrats like the mayor of Berkeley who actually are Antifa and friends with them and whatnot, as we've proven many times in our videos, so let's not go too much into that. Antifa 7 Hills also tweeted this fucker Joe Biden, and they retweeted the tweet from CrimeThink that we saw earlier. PDX Iron Front Soy Division tweets, Biden trying to capitalize on the sacrifices of the heroes in Charlottesville is producing an unhealthy amount of rage in me. And then they add to this, I called this shit 2 years ago. In a decade, we're gonna have politicians praising the moral courage of anti-fascists while shitting on us in the moment. I just didn't realize it would happen so quickly. Then they add, there's countless examples of this throughout history, and it's just so tiring. You know, if you made the moral stand when it mattered, maybe the bad thing wouldn't have happened. But I guess that's not good for personal gain. I love watching these people just fight each other. They're all regressive leftists. Not to put people into two categories, that's just part of the left, you see? And then he had, in 20 years after we beat back the fascist surge, we're gonna have Republicans invoking Heather Heyer's name, and I'm gonna shoot myself. Just Jeff tweeted, this is not acceptable, Joe Biden. Rest in power, Heather Heyer. Hashtag fuck Joe Biden. Just Jeff may not seem like an Antifa account, but if you look into it, you'll see that it is. J. Deshpande, I guess, tweeted, happy fuck Joe Biden day. Let's start a thread. What do you hate most about Joe Biden? Hashtag fuck Joe Biden. I mentioned this guy's tweet because an Antifa account responded to this with, and this is from Antifa 7 Hills, by the way, using the trauma of 8/12 in his announcement video, exclaiming that courageous people fought Nazis that day, duh, which stole the work of anarchists, local people of color, anti-fascists, and then some who are vilified daily by the likes of Biden, and did it without saying the name Heather Heyer. By the way, the hashtag fuck Joe Biden thing, it's not just about his praise of the anti-American Antifa as American heroes, it's more general than that. But there you go. We have this here from Archaeum. If you look at Archaeum's Twitter, it does seem that this person is Antifa. Joe Biden sided with big money against the students of America. Joe Biden was against integration of blacks and whites via school busing. Joe Biden voted for the Iraq War. Hashtag fuck Joe Biden. Here's another. Seriously though? Has this reactionary creep said one good thing? Just one? You folks may remember this one here, this famous face of Antifa. You may have seen her in many videos, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tabby. I think this is the one who went to the Middle East.
Yeah, and then he beat and raped her repeatedly.
Oh, she had a Muslim boyfriend. Mm-hmm. Not that she went over there with her boyfriend.
No, and then he imprisoned her in his home,
and
God. He beat and raped her for quite a while, actually. Until she finally, I can't remember if she escaped or exactly how she got away, but she did get away.
Yeah, and then after that, I've seen her in multiple Portland Antifa videos.
Yeah, where she's like, we need open borders and more understanding. Bitch, you're supposed to be a feminist. She's a feminazi, by the way, also. Mm. And she got beaten and raped by her boyfriend, who happens to be Muslim. But let's overlook the fact that she's not saying shit about that because he's Muslim. Had he been some white guy
Right.
from America,
Right.
she'd be hollering all kinds of hate toward men.
So in response to Crime Think's tweet that we read earlier in this video, she responds, well, she retweets it and writes, I was standing at the intersection when the terror attack occurred in Charlottesville. Before and since that attack, our Antifa tactics have been questioned by people on the left, especially centrist Democrats, a jab at Joe Biden, but our resistance works. We will resist despite critics, always. And then in response to that, Pacific Anarchist tweets, it's so disgusting that Biden is using footage from Charlottesville when it was people like him that repeatedly call us terrorists. Oh, you gotta love it. He praises them, they condemn him.
It's because they're stupid. I'm sorry. Okay, a politician is finally backing you. Okay? A presidential candidate is finally backing you, but you're so gung-ho up your communist assholes
Right.
that you're like, fuck this guy! How dare somebody from the government be on our side? Oh my god.
Right.
We are trying to implode nuclear here. You're not supposed to help us.
Uh-huh.
That's how dumb they are. That is how absolutely retarded they are.
They are very
They're
stupid.
like, how dare you like us? Don't you know that we barely like Bernie?
Right.
My God.
Because to them, even Bernie's too far to... Because, you know, Bernie, he doesn't
is
want
the
open...
establishment.
Right, well, he doesn't want open borders, so therefore he's a Nazi. In response to this tweet, Happy Fuck Joe Biden Day, let's start a thread, what do you hate most about Joe Biden? This Antifa responded, I've never agreed with anyone not to bash Biden before or after primaries. Hashtag fuck Joe Biden. But this just goes to show you how against Biden, the people that Biden praised, how against him they are.
They're
That's
against
so great.
everything. They are literally against everything. They would be against their own mothers.
Well, they're against
You know?
themselves. A lot of these people, you can tell, they just hate themselves. So.
They just want to fucking fight the fight. Fight the power!
Alright, so that's enough of that. Okay, folks, so this Biden praising Antifa thing, it's still pretty new, so the reactions are still rolling in. No doubt after I make this recording of this narration, there'll be others that come out, so here's what I'll do. I'll give a link below to the webpage version of this video, and I'll keep adding to it as these roll in. Speaking of which, we have a WordPress where we collect and categorize a lot of the news stories that we would cover in our videos if we had more time, we just don't. Here you can see a list of categories. Click on any of these and it goes to a WordPress page in which we collect news stories about that particular subject or videos about it. Beneath that is an alphabetical list of articles that I've written, which are basically written versions of our videos, and each of these links to the videos of which these are written versions. Beneath that is a list of our videos of historic events, you know, like particular Antifa riots or whatever, arranged historically, and we are just getting started with all this, so subscribe to our WordPress and also subscribe to our BitChute channel, see the link below, because our days on YouTube are numbered because YouTube is phasing out censoring and even deleting channels like ours that challenge the regressive left. Alright everyone, until next time, love, light, life, leaping laughter, and liberty, thanks for watching.